Hey dudes. So this is my Eastern European update. So today, I'm thinking, huh, well, Russian troops are in Belarus. I'm 130 miles right now from Brest, Belarus. I'm in Warsaw, Poland. And I'm wondering, well, are we going to be invaded here in Poland? I don't know. We have NATO protecting us. Putin wouldn't dare invade Poland, but you never know what the guy will do because he's completely crazy. As far as power outages and lack of electricity, food, water, well, you have to think. In Poland, we have the pipeline that comes from Norway and Denmark. So we have an alternative supply of gas. We don't need Nord Stream. We still get a little bit of gas from Russia. So I think we're not going to freeze to death this winter. I think the price of electricity and all utilities, gas, is going to go up maybe 10-15%. I can handle it. Warsaw's pretty cheap. Well, Warsaw is probably 50% cheaper than living in Los Angeles, or even more, probably. I think the cost of living is 60% cheaper than living in LA. That's one of the reasons I'm here instead of LA. But I am, of course, worried that with the recent escalation, 4 days now of attacks, drone attacks in Kiev, a city I know a little bit because I've been there 3 times and walked the same streets that were bombed and walked that glass bridge or the glass-sided bridge in central Kiev that was bombed. I walked on that in 2019. And of course, I lived in Odessa, Ukraine for almost 3 years. So I know Ukraine pretty well. And Odessa also was attacked by one of these Iranian drones. It hit the port of Odessa. I'm looking, there's an escalation every time that Ukraine makes an advance on the enemy. Russia strikes back really hard. So I think the intervention is needed, basically. And I think Western intervention is needed. We need to fly some stealth bombers, or I'm not an expert on military technology, but I think within a few days we could completely destroy the Russian army and all the troops that are currently in Ukraine. I think it would be very easy. I also think that our American intelligence technology, our military intelligence knows exactly, by satellite and other means, we know exactly where members of the Putin regime are currently in Russia. And my theory is they travel between 2 or 3 different cities, Moscow and 2 other cities. One thing I did notice is that it was about 4 months ago, I noticed they had the Putin regime with Putin at the head of the table, or I was surrounded by his administration. They were in a conference room that looked markedly different from Moscow, and I noticed immediately that they were down south somewhere, because I lived on a port city on the Black Sea, and I know certain plants and vegetation that I saw for 3 years. I walked through the forests, and I know what the vegetation looks like. I know the plants because I look at plants. I just absorb the atmosphere, and I looked in that Putin regime conference room, and I go, oh my God, he's down south somewhere, because those plants are not native to Moscow. Those ornamental plant boxes that surrounded the table on which the regime was seated during the conference. Those plant boxes had indigenous plants of the south of Russia. They were in the south of Russia. So I think that's, Putin goes far to the south of Russia, probably once a week. So my feeling is that Putin regime will be destroyed by the end of the year, or he'll be deposed. Something's going to happen. The guy can't last. He's got the opposition of the world against him. And United States knows what to do. He won't last. So that's perhaps that's wishful thinking, I don't know. I'm not an expert on these things, but I think most of the world, except the psychos that are betraying United States now and the American right, is something to which I usually subscribe. I consider myself on the right and conservative, but now they're betraying me. I don't trust them anymore because there's a new movement on the right and in the conservatives that amongst some video bloggers on BitChute and YouTube, they're not supporting Ukraine, and they're very obliquely and inadvertently, sometimes blatantly, supporting Putin's invasion, the Putin regime. They're supporting. They won't say it outright, but they actually are. So you guys, I'm not going to mention names. Anyways, that's a surprising and shocking movement. And I don't think they're wholeheartedly supporting. They're just apologizing for it or obliquely justifying it, which I find essentially treasonous. So that's all I have to say today. You can put your comments below. До свидания.